G'day viewers, Prospector Pete back again. I got a video today which is mostly for beginners. I'm hoping everyone then finds it interesting, but a lot of beginners are asking where to start in the refining business, and there's a few people I know that are making mistakes along the way, so hopefully this will clear up for everybody. Anybody who's watched my videos before would know I can't stand fake videos. When I was learning, I was desperate for information and I couldn't seem to find any videos that weren't fake. You know, they were either doing trick photography or missing steps, wasn't showing the full process, and without knowing step by step every detail, it's really hard when you're learning. So this video, I plan on doing the full process from start to finish, not missing any steps, not doing any funny business. What you see is what happens. I'll try and make it as explanatory as possible, as detailed as possible without rambling on too long, hopefully. I'll show you, I'll just turn the camera around. We've got a pile of gold coated pins and plugs and all kinds of things here. It's a bit of a mixture. I'm going to show you how to get the gold off. I try and make my batches as clean as possible, but there are times when you have plugs that are too hard to get the pins out of. Like this one here, for instance, all melted for when I use my heat gun to depopulate. That's fine, don't stress, the acid will still get to all the pins. And but wherever I can, I'll make it as clean as possible. So we'll get started. I'll just get my PPE on and we'll go. Okay, as much as I look like a knob right now, at least my eye protection is on. I don't have any safety glasses, plus I find this better because it stops acid splashing in my face, not just my eyes. I'd rather look weird than to have acid burns on my face. Gloves are a must. Always use PPE, guys, it's not worth getting hurt. Okay, so I'm going to give you options. Some people aren't aware that there's options. First up, what I plan to do is to soak this in hydrochloric acid. The reason why is because there's solder on some of these pins. Most of them don't, but even the tiniest bit will put tin in solution, and tin will give you a nightmare. If you don't want any hiccups along the way, if you want it to all go as easy as possible, then you want to avoid at all cost having tin in solution. Now, your option is to use AP. AP would be a better choice because it would dissolve all the base metals and it will get rid of the tin, and it will avoid the need for using nitric acid. Some people don't want to use nitric acid. So if you don't want to use nitric acid, then also use AP. However, it takes about 2 or 3 weeks, and I want this done in a couple of days. So I'll be using hydrochloric acid, and then I'll be using nitric acid. Now, don't listen to people who say you've got to boil it for an hour or two, because that's not true. Pretty much as soon as this hits hydrochloric acid, it's going to start dissolving the solder. All acids work better when they're hot, so I will be putting on heat probably for a maximum of half an hour. I would say that that's plenty. So first step now is to tip all this into a beaker. And get my hydrochloric acid. Doesn't matter what strength you can get. There's various different strengths, but it doesn't matter. I'm just going to pour enough in there to cover it. It won't go to waste because when I'm finished I'll keep it for other jobs like this where I need to soak things in hydrochloric. Just keep using it until there's no strength left in it. I don't like wasting anything. Now I'll put it on heat. It doesn't need to be very hot. Just one will do, just to warm it up, and I'll let it, so you can already see it reacting straight away as soon as it gets in there. A little bit of warmth, a little bit of heat will make the acid work even faster, I'll be back in about half an hour or so, see how it's going. If there's still a reaction, I'll keep it going. If there's no reaction, then I'm done. Now, for people who are curious, you don't need to have water in there. You can if you want to. You can use tap water. It doesn't need to have distilled because it's no silver in there. But I've got plenty of hydrochloric acid, so I just put straight hydrochloric acid. If you don't have much, you're welcome to dilute it. But this will be fine. You can see it reacting. It hasn't even heated up yet. I don't want to boil it because I want to make sure that the reaction I'm looking at is actually the chemical reaction and not bubbles from boiling. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, as you can see, there's only a very minimal reaction. It's been 20 minutes, so another 10 minutes or so, and I'm going to take it off. It's on the heat as well, so half those bubbles are probably due to it being on heat. But there's next to nothing happening. Even when I stir it up, most of the silver, solder, tin, whatever is in there, would be gone. That's all I need. I don't want to break down any of the base metals. See, there's nothing happening. So now I'm going to take it off and I'm going to strain it, and we'll go from there. Yep. Alright, so I've poured the HCl into here. I had to do it with camera off because I couldn't do it by myself, and now I've got someone to hold the camera. And I've got water in here. It is vitally important that you get rid of every single scrap of hydrochloric acid at this point. Otherwise, on the next step when I use nitric acid, if I haven't got rid of any hydrochloric, it'll make aqua regia, and I don't want that just yet. So I'm giving it a really good rinse with water. Doesn't matter what water, doesn't have to be distilled. I'm going to tip it out. I'll put some more. I'll give it 2 quick rinses, and then I'll actually boil it in some water just to make sure that every single bit of it's gone. You're better off doing extra precautions, extra steps, take more effort in your steps than to try and rush things. With this hobby, you can't rush anything. If you don't have patience, this isn't the hobby for you. You really need to take your time. You can't cut corners, otherwise things go wrong. Now I'm going to sit that on heat for a while, crank up the heat, boil it for a little while just to guarantee I've got every single bit of HCl. I'll crank it right up high. I'll leave it on there for, I don't know, 10 minutes or so, and then we'll come back and I'll drain that out and we'll go from there. Okay, so this has been boiling for a while now. I even topped it up some, which is why it doesn't look like it's boiling now. And I'm going to rinse it out. It's just water, but any remnants of hydrochloric acid that might be in there. It should be, hopefully, now hydrochloric acid free. I'll get that out later when it cools down. So now, if you don't have nitric acid, as I said before, you could just put this in AP, but this is how I'm going to do it. Some people are going to tell you that you need to separate your magnetic from your non-magnetic. I'm not going to say they're wrong, but I'm going to tell you that I don't do that. And there's a simple reason why. If the base metal is copper or brass or anything like that, I'll be using nitric to get rid of it. If the base metal is steel, I'm still going to use nitric acid to get rid of it. So I don't see the point in separating them. The nitric acid will get rid of all the base metals for me, and that's what I want. So just going to top it up with some water. There's no silver involved, so it doesn't need to be distilled water. There's just enough water in there to cover it. And I'm going to put some nitric acid in there. It doesn't need to be a whole lot. This stuff's expensive. So I'm going to put a little bit in, and then when there's no more reaction, I'll put a bit more. And then when the reaction stops, I'll put a bit more, and so on. There should be plenty. That'll start fizzing and carrying on. See, like that, and there's not even heat there yet. I'll turn up to... You always want some heat if you can, because it'll always work better with some heat. It doesn't have to be hot now, so I've only got it on 1. You don't need to boil it at all. And every so often I'll just give it a stir, make sure that the ones on the bottom are getting the acid, which they should anyway, but now it's just a matter of letting it sit. And just keep an eye on it. When the reaction stops, put some more. Okay? And this here, by the way, is the same thing we're doing now, a previous batch I've already had started. And if you look in there, you'll see bits of gold around the edges here. So it's a nitric bath, just like we're doing now, a previous batch. Every time I get some, I just throw it in there. But I'm doing this one for you guys to show you the full process. Alright, so we'll come back with it a bit later on. Okay, it's been about an hour, maybe a bit more, and there's no reaction, as you can see. So, put some more nitric in. That should be plenty. And as you can see, straight away it starts reacting again. And all I got to do is just keep doing that. I don't want to waste nitric, it's too expensive to waste. Not to mention the fact that you don't need to keep putting too much in, that's where people go wrong. Just put a little bit in each time the reaction stops. And when there's no more reaction, I'll keep doing this in the meantime, but when there's no more reaction, I'll come back and let you know. I'm not going to do any steps beyond this without letting you know. That's what I hate when I'm trying to learn something and people don't show you every single detail. I'll keep you informed. Once again, the reaction has stopped. It's been a few hours now. Just going to put a bit more nitric in now, because I'm expecting to be around about the end of where all the base metals are dissolved. I'm only going to put a tiny bit because, okay, there's plenty of reaction. What I was going to say is because it might be a waste if there's nothing's going to happen. But clearly there's more base metals to dissolve. Now you can see that rusty colour, the brown. You're probably wondering why. You may be doing this yourself and thinking, what's gone wrong, where's that colour come from, what does it mean, blah blah blah. Don't worry about it, okay? Don't worry about any colours that are coming up. Don't worry about the plastic bits and the pieces that were in there. Don't worry about any of that. It'll all be sorted in time. I'll get you through this step by step, and all that can be filtered out. You'll see, all in good time. So for now, again, I'll just keep topping it up. I'll use little bits of it, like I just did then, just to see if there's a reaction. And when there's a bit of a reaction, then I'll put more in. In case you're wondering what that noise is behind me, there's a cockatoo in there, but he doesn't know how to be quiet. So it's not someone talking to me in the background. Alrighty, so we're back. Okay guys, it's day 2 now. I had this just sitting overnight. I went to bed, and as you can see, there's lots of gold flake. All the gold's coming off the pins while the pins are being absorbed, whether it be copper or steel, whatever. There's still a tiny bit of reaction. I'll give it another 5 or 10 minutes so you can see some fumes. It just popped a bit and some fumes came out. The bubbles popped. So I'll just give it another 10 minutes or so, and we'll have to put some more acid in there. You see that? See the fumes? So we'll just give it a little bit longer. Okay, see how since I've turned the acid back, the heat back on, it's starting to react a bit more again. Now look at all the gold. Beautiful. But don't be fooled into thinking there's going to be a lot of gold. I know it looks like there is, and the common mistake people thinking is, oh, there's going to be stacks of gold, but there won't be. There won't be much at all. But the reaction slowed down a little bit. I can at least see a few things moving around in there. Once that stops, I'll put some more. I'll keep doing that. Okay, the reaction has slowed right down. There's nothing happening in there now. See the gold around the rim where it all started settling and it came down, see that? So I'll put some more acid in there. See the fumes instantly. Okay, so there's no more reaction. Pretty much all the gold is lifted. Since the last time I put nitric acid in there, nothing's happened. There's no reaction whatsoever. So I've just turned the heat off. I can't filter it while it's hot. So the next stage is to filter it and catch all those gold foils, which with it can then rinse thoroughly and dissolve. So I'll let you know when we get there. Okay, so now, as you know, the reaction is completely stopped. It's time to filter it. It's day 3. I could have had this done sooner, but didn't have anyone to hold the phone, and I don't want to do things off camera. I want you guys to see every single step. As you can see, it's the same stage as this other batch I got. This one here I could also siphon and filter, but I'm just going to keep adding things because there's not much gold here. I don't want you guys to think, oh, there's going to be tons of gold. There's going to be very little gold in here, but I'm only doing it to show you what to do. So I'm going to put some gloves on. Most important, don't do things like this without using your protection. It's not worth getting injured. And my face shield. I shouldn't need a respirator because there's not any bad fumes. It's different if it was hot and it's smoking and everything, but it's not. So I'm just going to pour it into a coffee filter. It'll probably take a while. I don't think I need to show you every single time I pour some in here. I'll just let that strain through. I'll just keep adding it. There's no point in filming every one of them, but when I get towards the end now, I'll show you the last bit. And once that's strained through, then we can wash it and get ready to dissolve it. So I'll come back later. So I've had to start 2 other filters because this one here, all the gold foils are choked down the corner there, and then it doesn't drain anymore. So I started that one, and that got choked up full of filters as well, foils. So I started this one just a few minutes ago, and this time I drilled holes around the base to try and let more out, but it's still not working, and it's a usual story. It takes forever to filter. This has taken 3 or 4 days longer than it needs to, just in the filtering process, and I've still got that to go through yet. So it's just going to take its time, I guess. I'll top these up a bit. I just wanted to keep you up to date on what I'm doing. I'm not going to do anything without letting you know. There's no point in filling this one up because down there is just chock-a-block full of foils. I'll let that last bit drain out, and I'll just keep going with these 2. Okay, so I got sick of these things waiting to drain. As you can see, they're all choked up full of gold foils. It took forever, and this one over here I had to not hose it out, but squirt all the gold out. It was all caught down in there, and I come up with a good idea. I had this brewer's bag. It's a very fine mesh, and I bought it for the electronic silver cell. Very fine, but there's no fine enough that nothing can get through it except the liquid. So what I did was I made up I cut the bottom off the bag and put it on a funnel, and the liquid went straight through, exactly what I wanted. So I didn't have to wait 3 days. You see all that fine dark stuff? That's what's been plugging up the filter, and that's fine gold as well as bits of other stuff. So now that can all get squirted into a filter, a beaker, and I'll put these in there as well because they've got gold trapped in the paper. They can all go in the solution, and like I said before, you don't need to worry about all these bits that are floating in there. They'll all get sorted later. You just dissolve the gold first, then you can filter all that stuff out. It'll be easy. So I'll get all that squirted into a beaker off all the mesh, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I've got all the filters down in there. This other one I made up, squirted out real easy. All the gold came off nice and easy. That was a piece of cake. I'll be doing that in future. As you can see, there's quite a bit of gold. Well, it looks like a lot, but it won't actually amount to much. And so now what I'm going to do is get my gloves on and make some aqua regia. I'll do that in a second. Okay, there's liquid in there, but that's only the water from where I was squirting off the filter. That's not going to be a problem. I've got someone holding the camera now, so we're ready to make the aqua regia. Well, first we start with hydrochloric acid. And normally you'd cover the material, but I've got a lot of water in there from squirting the filters off, so I'm not going to need too much. How much should do. Now this is the most important part. This is where everybody keeps going wrong. You only need a tiny bit of nitric acid. That's it. And then if later down the track I see some gold foils that aren't dissolved, then I'll put a tiny bit more. But it's crucial that you only do what they call incremental adding, which is where I've just done this tiny little bit, and then you add little bits as you need to. So many people just pour heaps of it in there, and then they wonder why they can't drop the gold. Okay, you will not be able to drop it if you've got too much nitric. That's the number one mistake that everybody makes. Now I'll put this on heat. This can go up here for now. I've got aqua regia in there. I had some BGAs crushed up and I'm getting the gold out of that. So that can sit on heat for a little while. And I'll keep an eye on all the gold foils. If I see any more, in about half an hour or so, when they've had enough chance to dissolve, if there's any more, I'll need a tiny bit more nitric. But for now, we'll see how that goes. Right, guys, it's time to filter the solution. There's, from the last time I saw, some tiny specks of gold. I don't know if you're going to see them, but there's tiny little specks. There's one right there. And that's perfect. I would rather have little bits of gold undissolved than to keep adding more nitric and then wonder whether or not it's denoxed. This way I know there's no strength left in the solution, otherwise that gold would be dissolved. There's not a lot, so it's not like I'm losing plenty of gold, and that'll all be caught in the filter. And the filter I can put into this batch, which was the other one that you saw me doing. I'm now progressed with that one, and anything that's caught in the filter can go into there, and that'll be dissolved in there. This we know now it does not need to be denoxed because all the strength is gone. So now I'm just going to get a filter ready. I should have done this before I put my gloves on. Okay, got it. The problem with this brand, I like the fact that they're a cone, but they don't have a tab like the other ones do. Okay. A lot of people say you've got to wet the filters down first. I find you don't need to. I'm not saying don't do it. If you want to, like other people say to, then fine. But it works fine for me. See, it's already coming straight through. No need to wet it. That's just my view. Just level the filter up a bit. And I'll stop there. Once that's gone through, I'll put the rest through. And then I'll keep washing to get any gold solution that's trapped in those filters. I'll keep rinsing it to get the gold solution through. And then whatever's left over can go in there. All we're concentrating on this video is this gold solution here. Alright, so I'll come back when I'll probably just keep topping that up, and when it's time to rinse it and everything, we'll come back. Okay guys, so we're at the stage now where I've already filled this up with water once before to flush out any gold solution. There is still a lot in there. You can see all the yellow in the paper. If this was your only gold solution, you would want to keep squirting that and get all the yellow out. but since this is going to go into this mix anyway, it's not going to make any difference. And I looked thoroughly through there and I can only see a couple of gold specks, which is what I want. I don't want a whole lot of gold. If there was lots of gold in there, then I would have kept dissolving it. But just a couple means there's no, like I said before, no strength left in the solution, and that means I don't need to denox. So any gold that's in there now can go into that mix. And now we're done with the straining part of it. What we're going to do now is drop the gold. And I'm going to need to put my respirator on, and you won't be able to hear me, so I'll explain now what I'm about to do. I'm going to put some water in here with some SMB, and then I'm going to pour it into here. And when that happens, it makes sulfur dioxide, which will choke you. You cannot breathe through the stuff, and it's bad for you, so that's why I'm going to wear my respirator. So to start with, I get my SMB. I'll just get a little scoop like that. That should be plenty. Some people I've seen on videos, they put heaps and heaps and heaps. You can always do a test afterwards to see if you've dropped all the gold, and then add more if need be. But I find that's about enough. And then I pour some water in there. It's just plain water, it doesn't have to be distilled water. I find hot water is better, it dissolves better, but that'll do. Get a spoon and stir it. When it's cold water like this, it may need to be stirred a few times. But if a little bit of powder doesn't dissolve and it goes in there, that's not a problem. I know some people add their SMB dry, and some people like to use water. I personally find it better to myself to dissolve it first. But either way, if you're just going to use the dry powder, you need to double the quantity of solution before you do it. And this way I'm just doing the same thing. I'm adding the water and the powder at the same time. So it makes no difference. I just find a better result this way. So let that stir for a bit while I put my mask on. So you're not going to be able to hear a thing I say now. So I'll just make sure I've kept everything. I'm going to pour that into there. It should colour change straight away, hopefully. But how fast it changes into what colour depends on how much gold is in there. And as I said before, there's not a lot of gold. So I don't want you guys to get excited thinking there's going to be lots, because there's not. It may have looked like a lot, but trust me, it's not. So I'll put this on. Might have to put it around the right way. Okay. I'm going to add it slowly because it sometimes can really badly overflow. So I put a little bit in first to see what the reaction's like. That little bit of colour change you saw, it looked like the gold had dropped and then redissolved, but it can't be because there's no strength left in the solution. I may need to put some more SMB in there. That's the result I wanted, the colour change. Now just let it sit and the gold will drop. Okay, just an update to show you how it's going. It's gone all black, which is what you want, but it's starting to clear up on the top. I don't know if you can see that in the video. But however, you don't want to try and disturb it right now, just let it sit all night. Come back to it tomorrow. Okay, so this here has dropped. If you look, you can see right through it. There's a bit of cloudiness. I don't know if the beaker's dirty or whether that's colloidal gold floating. So what I'm going to do, I always keep my gold drop solution because more gold can drop over time. I'm going to siphon so I don't stir up the bottom. I'm going to siphon all this off and just keep it for, I don't know, a week or so, see if anything drops. So I'll put that up here. I've got a beaker down there, and I'll do the same thing that Three Tips does, is I'll fill up the hose with water. I'll put one end into the solution and the other end down in the beaker, and it should start siphoning. And there she goes. It should take only a few minutes. Now at this stage the gold could look in several different ways. It might look like black powder, black sludge, black silt, or it could look brown. It doesn't really matter how it looks at this stage, it's only a matter of a difference of purity. If it's the browner it is, the more pure it is. And the darker and sludgier it is, the less pure. But that's okay, because we're going to refine it anyway. So at this stage we're still recovering the gold. The next stage is to refine the gold. Well, that's as far down as I want to go. I don't want to suck any brown gold up. I'll squirt the tube off, otherwise the liquid that's in there may deteriorate the hose. Just flush out the hose. Now, okay, so we've got a black silty sludge. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fill it up with water, boiling water if I can, up to about here, and then give it time to settle again. And just to show you what I mean, the other stuff that I had over here has done that same step over here. I've already drained off all the wash drop water and filled it up with normal water, and it's settled again. And that's what we're going to be doing. So I'll turn the kettle on and I'll put some hot water in here. So while I wait for the kettle to boil, I'm just going to explain. So we're going to wash the gold. We're going to put 3 lots of boiling water each time, letting it settle, draining off the water, then putting more boiling water. Once I've done 3 washes of boiling water, then I'll put some hydrochloric acid in there just to make sure that anything else other than gold is dissolved. I'll put it on heat for a little while, and then when it cools down I'll get rid of the hydrochloric acid and wash it again 2 times with water, hot water. And then we should be ready to refine the gold to more purity. So I'm just waiting on the kettle. So just like with any other steps, you can't rush it and you can't skip any steps. If you try and avoid this, you're not going to get pure gold. So now I'm just going to pour the boiling water in. That should be plenty. Just let it stir, and when it sits and when all the gold drops, I'll wash it again. Okay, so the gold has dropped a second time. As you can see, the water's nice and clear now. So I'll pour this off. I shouldn't need to siphon, hopefully. Just as it starts to escape the gold, I'll stop. I don't want to lose any of it. And I'll put some more hot water in. And the other one I'll do up there as well. And come back for the 3rd one. Okay, I don't remember if I've done 2 or 3 washes, but just in case, I'm going to do one more. As you can see, this is dropped nice and clear. There's the gold. And I just want to pour this until I see gold trying to escape. just there. Trying to do this one-handed was a bit hard. Now you can see there's a bit of brownness in that liquid, and a bit of gold has settled from the last time I did a drop. So I'm going to leave that settle somewhere. Alright, so I've put that just next to it. There is some gold in suspension there. That's what sometimes happens. That's why you always keep it when you pour it off. You don't throw it in your stock pot or anything like that. That will settle out. And do some more hot water. That'll be the last wash for now. Next one will be some hydrochloric acid, and I'll put it on heat for about half an hour or so just to boil it. And then it'll be 2 more water washes. Alright, so the gold has settled overnight, and this has been the 3rd wash. So now we're going to do some hydrochloric acid. And I want to show you the container that I had the wash water poured into. This is exactly why I keep it. I don't know if you can see, but any gold loss is too much, so always keep your wash waters, your gold drop waters, whatever, so you just even overnight to see if anything settles. So there's the it's a nice layer in there. That's the gold from yesterday, the water. So I'm going to pour the water out. As soon as the gold tries to escape, just want to stop. There. That little bit of water that's in there now is not going to hurt. Put some hydrochloric acid in. It doesn't need to be too much. And this will just make sure that any other remaining metals come out. I would normally put it on heat, but I'm going to go out for a couple of hours. So I'll wait till I come home. So I'll let that sit. I might even pour this water off and throw this back in there with it. Oh, that's all started stirring up now. When I get home, I'll put it on heat for half an hour or so, and then we'll do 2 more washes of water, and then we'll redissolve it to refine it and drop it again. Okay, so now I'm going to drain off this hydrochloric acid and do some water washes. A little bit went over, so I'll put that aside and let it settle. And I'll just do some normal water washes now. I'll have to go and boil the kettle and get some hot water. So I'll put some hot water in there off camera, and then I'll come back and next time I drain it for the next lot. Time for the last water wash. Just put my gloves on. Now, as I said to you when I poured some into here last time, some escaped, and you can see the gold at the bottom. This is why I always recommend you keep your water washes. So when I put this on, I'm going to tip out the excess water. It's only water, and put the gold back into there. But first I'll tip that out as well before I stir it all up. My memory's not too good, so I don't remember if this is the last water wash or whether I've already done 2. But for the sake of it, in case, I'll do 1 more. And stop when the gold tries to escape. Looks like it's escaping because that water's gone dark. It's got a tinge to it, so I'd say there's some gold in there. I'll put that aside. And this can go into this thing here. I'll put this in my stock pot when I'm done. There's not much, but it's a little bit, and every bit of loss is too much of a loss. Every bit of gold's worth it. Gold is there. Right, so I'll go and get the kettle.
Done.
So the water's not boiling hot, but it was used about, I don't know, 5 minutes ago, so it's still hot enough that it would do some job, do some good. That'll do. The next one is definitely going to refine it. Alright, so the water has been sitting, the gold has dropped. It's time now to drain the water off and redissolve the gold. So I'll pour the water off. I had it sitting on heat for a little while because sometimes that helps to drop the gold more. The water had a colour to it, so I'm just going to leave it aside. And it's still very fine black soot, but as we refine it, that should go more of a brown and clump together better. So now, it doesn't matter that bit of water's in there, that's fine. Put some hydrochloric acid in. I'm going to put my respirator on because you don't muck around when it comes to acids. Safety first and all that. Take this off for a second. But just so you know, I'm going to put hydrochloric acid in there, and then I'm going to do incremental doses of nitric acid, which means I'm going to put the tiniest little bit, and then if I don't see it all dissolve, then I'll put a tiny bit more, and I'll keep adding tiny bits until all the gold's dissolved. If you go putting too much of nitric in there, you're never going to be able to drop the gold, and that's the biggest mistake people make. Always safety first. Always use your safety equipment. This is hydrochloric acid. That should be plenty. And this is nitric acid, just a tiny bit. And maybe in a half hour or so I might need to put some more, we'll see. We'll come back to it. I'll put this on the heat and we'll come back to it. Heat, and as you can see, if you have a close look, it's going to a goldy colour rather than the dark colour that it was, which is normal for aqua regia. Okay, as you can see, it's completely dissolved. There's no specks underneath, nothing. Maybe just a tiny bit of dirt, and it might even be just on the beaker. And that was with just that tiny little bit of nitric I put in there. However, it could be too much. What I should have done, but I don't have, is used a pipette. I should have put tiny, just a few drops at a time. And I don't have any pipettes, that's why I poured a little bit in there. So now, I have two choices. Either denox it, or add some more gold powder. I've got more gold powder. And if I wasn't making this video, I'll just keep putting more gold powder in there until it didn't dissolve. But for the sake of it and for you guys, I'm going to denox it. Now, do not waste your time with urea. I cannot specify enough. Urea is garbage. The gold refining forum hate the stuff. I don't like the stuff. It doesn't even denox. All it does is lower the pH. You're wasting your time, wasting your money if you buy urea. What you need to buy, what you should buy, is sulfamic acid. Okay, 100% sulfamic acid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some sulfamic acid in there. You only put tiny amounts at first. I don't know where there's a spoon. I don't have a plastic spoon handy, so I'm just going to pour some in, but you don't need much. Just like that. See the reaction? It kind of foams up and then it clears. I'll put a tiny bit more. It foams up. I'll see if I can put this into the sunlight so you can see better. It foams up instantly and then dies off. The quicker it dies off, the less it needs to be denoxed. I was putting tiny bits at a time. So the reaction was very slow that time. Even though it looks like it's dissolving straight away, there is some in the bottom still. So I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to give it a stir because there's still some powder in the bottom. Now, according to Hoke's book of refining precious metals, you may have heard of Hoke's book. If you haven't heard of Hoke's book, I highly recommend you get it. It's got everything you need to know about refining metals. Anyway, in Hoke's book it says that to get purity when refining gold, don't use the same precipitant twice. What that means is I've used SMB already once. If I want better purity, I should not use SMB a second time. So I'm going to mix up some copperas and I'm going to precipitate this gold with copperas. So I'll go and get everything ready and I'll be back. Now while I wait for the kettle to boil, you can use cold water to dissolve copperas, but I like using hot water. And I've just got this on heat at the moment to help dissolve any sulfamic acid that might still be in there, just to make sure it's all done. But I want to denox in that beaker. So what I'm going to do, I don't need gloves because I'm not touching the chemicals. I'm going to tip this into the smaller beaker. See the sulfamic acid? We're going to strain that out anyway, so it's not going to matter too much. Now I need to squirt that down and I can't do it with one hand, so I'm just going to do that off camera for a second. Alright, so clearly I didn't need to use as much sulfamic as I did, but it was hard to see when I'm also trying to hold the camera. If I had someone holding the camera for me, it would be alright, and I would have known that it was finished, but that's okay, I'll strain it anyway. So now I need to, I'm not going to worry too much about heating it up. I'm going to put that through a filter and get out anything that's in there, make sure it's a nice crystal clear solution ready to denox, ready to drop with the copperas. So I'll get a funnel ready and a filter. Alright, so I've got a filter ready here. I'm going to pour this in. It's a beautiful orange colour. Most times your gold solution will be yellow. If you've got a lot of gold in there or a very high purity, that generally means that when it goes orange. But that's only a guide, it's not always the case. Again, I've got to squirt this down, so I'll be back with one. I'm going to do this 2 hands. So now it's just a matter of waiting until that drips through. It's coming through pretty quick. We've got to wait for the kettle anyway to get some hot water. I'll be back to you shortly. Okay, I got some hot water, so now I'm just going to pour some copperas into there. That should be plenty, probably even more than enough. Into there, into the beaker, and I'll put some hot water in it. Sorry, it's hard doing this with one hand, and I did say to you I want to try and capture every single step on camera. I'm trying to avoid just doing anything off camera as I can. So I pour some water in there. Now I'm just going to stir it and stir it and stir it. It's not all going to dissolve. There's quite a lot of it that won't dissolve. And what will happen if I don't keep stirring this, it'll settle on the bottom of the beaker and go rock hard, and it'll be bloody hard to get out. You might even break a beaker. So at this point I have to keep stirring it. And the gold has almost filtered through. Once that's filtered through, I'm going to rinse the gold. I'm going to squirt the paper and then rinse all the gold solution out of the paper. Make sure there's no colour left in that paper at all. Then I'm going to filter this. This needs to be filtered. I may even try and find another vessel of some sort to filter this into, but it's got to cool down first, otherwise the hot water will just burn the filter and the filter will fall apart. So while it cools down, I'll keep stirring it. You won't need to watch me stir it for half an hour, so I can stop the camera, but I'll come back to you when I'm filtering it. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, Copperas is actually the product name of an item over in America. Here in Australia they don't actually sell Copperas, but the technical name for this stuff is ferrous sulfate. I've given it a good stir, it's cooled down a fair bit now, so I'm going to filter it. Ferrous sulfate. So all you got to do is find in the garden section something that contains 100% ferrous sulfate. I'm going to filter this. As you can see, it's coming through quite fast. Anything that gets left behind we don't want in our solution. Now I wanted to use this particular flask, this beaker, for dropping the gold because it's a high-sided, a tall form they call it, a tall form beaker. And the reason why I wanted to do that is so that if there's a reaction, it's tall enough to hopefully not overflow. But if I add it slowly, there shouldn't be a problem anyway. However, it's just better to, it's just practice I use, make sure that I always use a tall form beaker. I've only got a little bit left in here to filter, I'm just waiting for it to go down. I can't let it sit still because, like I said, it will bake hard in the bottom. The gold has almost dropped. I've already squirted the colour out of the gold paper. Just make sure that there's no gold solution left in that bit of sulfonic acid that's there. The solution looks nice and clear. Now I know there's a lot of you who are going to complain because all my glassware is dirty. And yes, I should have made sure it was all clean, but I've been that busy I haven't had a chance. As soon as I finish with one thing, I'm using it again. I haven't had any glassware sit long enough to clean it because I've been using it. So I'm just going to rinse this off camera and I'll be back. So I'm not just doing this procedure that we're doing on camera, I've also got other things on the go. I'm using nearly every beaker I've got. I've got gold diluting in there, gold watch down in there, gold ring down in there, VGA chips. I've got all my vessels are being used. So, you know, I haven't had a chance to clean any of my glassware. That's why they're dirty, before anyone complains. And the gold is all filtered through now. Just a matter of waiting for the Copperas to finish filtering through, and whatever lands in there is what I'll be using. I'll come back when it's done. Now I know some of you have said that not once have I tested for gold. Well, the first time and this time I didn't need to because I know the gold is dissolved. But ever, how would this be a complete process if I didn't show you? So I've got a sample from the gold solution. I'm going to squirt it onto my spot test plate. The syringe is really stiff now. There we go. Now you may remember from the very beginning where we soaked all the pins and so on in hydrochloric acid to get rid of the solder. Well, what that actually would have made is stannous chloride. For those of you who don't know how to make stannous chloride, you just put some solder or tin if you've got it into hydrochloric acid. What I've done is I've saved some in this little container. When I put some drops in there, it should go black like that. Instant reaction. One drop, instant reaction. That's a good sign. So now you've seen me test for gold. Okay, gold is all filtered through, and you can see it's nice and clear. I got the beaker washed so that we get a good final result without any cloudiness or dirt on the beaker. And the copper as is filtered through. You can see why we got to filter it, because you don't want all that garbage in the solution. So now that can just sit aside. And this here is a copper as. So I'll take this filter off here and pour this in. I can't remember if it's going to change colour or not, but hopefully. Yep, there it goes. And we'll let that sit until it's all dropped. Now, if it doesn't go like a clumpy, nice chocolate brown, I'll refine it a second time. But it will be better than the black sludge that we had a few minutes ago. You can already see it's got a nice brown solution. So it's just a matter of waiting until it drops now. If it does go all clumpy, then I'll dry it and weigh it and melt it. If it doesn't clump but it's still nice brown colour, I'll just refine it one more time. I like it to go all clumpy and get a good result for you. Okay, so the gold has dropped. It's been allowed to sit overnight. It's a bit green, but that's just the copper as. So I'm going to pour that off. The gold should look a lot browner than it did yesterday. It should be like yesterday, was more black, if anything. So I've got a container around here that I'm going to pour it into. You can see the gold staying at the bottom there, more brown. It's not wanting to travel down the beaker like it was when it was a black soot. Looks nice, a nice brown colour. I'm rather happy with that. It needs a wash though. The critical stage, every time you drop gold, doesn't matter that we washed it before, has to be washed again. So I've got the jug here with some hot water. Doesn't need a whole lot. I'll let that settle out, pour it off. Because you've seen the wash process before, I'm going to speed up time by doing this off camera. There's nothing you haven't seen. It's the 3 washes with hot water, 1 wash with hydrochloric acid, then 2 more washes with hot water. I'm going to do exactly the same as we did before. And I'll let you know when that's done. Okay, it's had all its washes. It's had the 3 water, had the hydrochloric acid, and then the 2 water. And now I'm just going to pour it into a non-stick pan. I know there's a lot of water in there, but that's okay. Still some more in here. I've got to squirt that out. I'll need 2 hands for that, so I'll do that and I'll just come back in a sec. Okay, so I've squirted it into the pan. Doesn't matter how much water there is, because it's going to go on this heat, on a gentle low heat, to evaporate it all and to collect the powder up. There's not going to be much, like I said to you before. There's going to be a little bit of powder, but at least it's showing you the full procedure. And I need the powder for another video. Someone's asked me to do something, so even though it's a little bit, that's perfect, because that's what he wants of the video. So I'll come back when it's just powder, and we'll weigh it up and show you. Okay, so I was drying the powder, and every time I checked the fry pan there was still water in there. And then the one time I didn't go and check it, it had actually gone dry, and a lot of it has dried onto the fry pan. Even though it was a non-stick fry pan, there's a lot in there still. I'm going to have to put a spray bottle in there and just give it a mist of water and see if I can release it. But what I have managed to scrape out so far, there's a decent chunk on some paper here. So I'll measure that for you now and get an idea of what this comes to, and then I'll just have to spray that, and I don't know how I'm going to add that to the mix, but you probably won't get to see that. I'll just put that back in gold solution. I've got plenty of solutions outside I'll add it to, but I'll show you what this weighs up anyway. Okay, I don't know if you can see the screen, it seems to go blurry. There's a 00 grams. I've got this empty container which I'm going to put the gold in, because I need the gold for my next video for something. So I'm going to put that on the scales and hit the tare button. So it's back to 00. And then let's see if I can do this without dropping it all. I'm trying to put this in there. I'll brush that off in a minute. Alright, so we've got 3.3 grams. That's more than I thought we'd get. And that's just what's saved. Then there's still on the paper here, and on the fry pan there's a lot of it in there. That was a nice clean brand new non-stick fry pan. So this brown you can see is all gold. It's not like a dirty fry pan. This was a black fry pan when I started. So this is all gold. And then I'm going to wet it down, and I've got some solution outside. I'll go and add it to that. And 3.3 grams of gold powder. I don't normally collect the gold powder, which is why I'm sort of doing it a different way than what most people I guess would do. I normally just put it in a filter and then melt it. So it's a first for me keeping the powder. So there you go, the full process from start to finish. I hope that this helps a lot of you. I don't see any reason why now you should be making mistakes, because if you do everything I did as I did it, and I haven't done anything without filming it, so every step has been filmed, you should be right. But if anyone does have any troubles, feel free to let me know, see if I can help. Thanks for watching. See you later.